South Carolina's ban on abortions is no more. Now, following a legal challenge to the 2021 law that took effect, of course, after the end of Roe, the state Supreme Court has ruled that this ban, which is a 6 week ban, is unconstitutional. And on Thursday, the ruling was handed down, and the court basically ruled that the restrictions had violated the state's constitutional right to privacy. So, again, this is all in the South Carolina state constitution. Now, the measure itself had banned abortions after cardiac activity is detected. So, it's one of those heartbeat bills, right? Which are not based on science, which are not based on factual information. In fact, this is usually around 6 weeks into pregnancy. Now, the bill did did create exceptions, for those that were caused by rape and incest, or ones that would endanger a patient's life. But still, a lot of those exceptions don't really do a whole lot. Now, as I mentioned before, these bills, these heartbeat bills, are not based on scientific evidence. They're not based on scientific fact. There is no heart around 6 weeks gestation. It's just not formed yet, according to actual doctors. An ultrasound can only detect fluttering cells that will eventually become the heart, and they call this cardiac motion. There's no actual heartbeat because there's no actual heart yet. So now, what doctors do in this case, and this is what right wingers jumped on, and anti-abortion activists, they jumped on we're gonna detect the heartbeat today. Well, doctors just say that because are they really going to sit there and explain, actually, these are precardiac cells that actually haven't created a heart, but they're doing a flutter, which kind of mimics it? No. They're going to be very simple because I hate to break it to you, but a lot of doctors and a lot of professionals dumb things down for normal people, for normies. I mean, that's just a reality. And I know it sounds kind of patronizing, but at the same time, do you really want the doctor to sit there and waste the time to explain all the scientific and medical jargon? Or just be like, this is pretty close to a heartbeat. It just shows your baby's or your fetus or your embryo is developing normally. And that's really all it is. Again, I made the distinction here, fetus, embryo, baby, whatever, because what is generally considered to be a baby by anti-choice activists at 6 weeks is an embryo, which has not developed these systems, intact cardiovascular system at that point, including a heartbeat. So, because there is no, again, heart. And it's not a fetus until about at least 9 weeks gestation. So understand how that dumbing down, while I understand the reason behind it, it is allowed for conservative activists to jump on that, to really put out a lot of misinformation about what actually a fetus is, and the development of that embryo and that fetus into a baby. So now the court, getting back to its ruling, here's what they wrote. And again, they ruled on this based on the right of privacy, which I think is interesting because that's a lot of what Roe was also based on. They said the state unquestionably has the authority to limit the right of privacy. Interesting. That protects women from state interference with her decision. But any such limitation must be reasonable, and it must be meaningful in the time, and that the time frames imposed must afford a woman sufficient time to determine she is pregnant and to take reasonable steps to terminate that pregnancy. They continued by saying 6 weeks is quite simply not a reasonable period of time for these two things to occur, and therefore the act violates our state constitution's prohibition against unreasonable invasions of privacy. That is the opinion, the majority opinion, written by Justice K. Hearn. So, again, on the science, 100%. Most women don't even know they're pregnant at 6 weeks. Much less are able to go through the massive amount of hoops that Republicans have put in their way to force them into carrying that pregnancy to term. And that's what that is, by the way. All these different restrictions that were done pre the end of Roe were just ways to chip away and to make it basically more difficult, time consuming, and annoying to be able to go and get an abortion. So now, that said, South Carolina, with that ban removed, it now defaults back to banning abortion at 20 weeks instead of 6. Now, overall, though, what I think about this is that we've seen in other states, Kansas being one of them, that you're having these extreme measures being rejected. These measures that roll back reproductive rights, they are getting rejected, and people are saying, the majority of people, even in red states, are saying that's our liberty that you were treading on. We should be able to make the decisions, having them between us and our doctors, and not having politicians get in the middle of it. That's why you've seen this rebuke in a lot of different states. However, that is not stopping these activists from continuing to try to strip women of bodily autonomy. And I don't mean just women, but there are also trans men who are non-binary, gender fluid, etc. Anyone with a uterus is affected by this. And by the way, with this, the end of this ban, anyone with a uterus is going to have reason to celebrate. That said, they're going to still, try to stop them from having bodily autonomy. And check this out, right? This is one of the arguments that lawyers representing the state Republicans, by the way, this is what they are arguing. They said that the right to privacy should be interpreted narrowly. What does that mean? Narrowly? What do you mean narrowly? Well, apparently, basically as narrow as a uterus. They just want to get right up in there and use that to control all of these people, what they do. Because remember, it's never been about life. If they cared so much about life, they would actually try to first do things that enhance the lives of people who are already born. Healthcare, childcare, education, food, housing, things like that. They would actually try to make life better for the people who are already born. And they would also try to prevent unwanted pregnancies from happening. They would try to prevent rapes and sexual assaults. They would be in favor of programs that would help these things. But there always seem to be against those things because it's not about life. It has always been about controlling other people. Here they are admitting it. You have the Party of Freedom saying you deserve less privacy because you have a womb. And during oral arguments this past October, they also argued that historical context suggests that lawmakers only intended to protect against searches and seizures when they ratified the right in 1971. And they mean property. So, your body is not your own property, is what they're saying. But when it comes to, the state being able to seize a woman's body, well, they consider her body their property. They want to seize her body against her will and use it as an incubator. Think about that. Again, that is incredibly dystopian. So it is good that this was struck down. But at the same time, while this is a victory, we should take this as a victory. We need to get more concrete federal protections for women, trans men, people who are non-binary, etc. Because until we do, and by the way, even after we do, because we saw, the efforts to overturn Roe, which was a just, a multi-decade assault on freedom. They're going to keep coming for reproductive rights. This, unfortunately, is at the moment a never-ending battle. Nonetheless, small victory for people in South Carolina, and I hope that one of these days we will eventually get a more broad federal protection for reproductive rights.